What's going on, everyone? This is Brian Turner here with the No Stress Midwest podcast. This year or this season, season seven, we've talked about, I've put an emphasis on not just becoming a pro player, but staying a pro player. What does it take to be at that level and perform over a few years? This episode, we're lucky enough to be joined by Marissa Sheva. Marissa, or of the Portland Thorns, excuse me. Marissa, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for being a guest. For the listeners, Marissa and I were just kind of talking. I remember when I first kind of followed along on her journey a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago. She was injured. So coming out of, was it an ACL surgery?
No, it was a hip surgery.
Hip surgery.
Yeah.
So at the time you weren't with the team. And I just remember at that time I had become friends of two of your college teammates at Penn State. We'll kind of go into that playing time. But shout outs to Maddie Nolf, Ellie Jean, and they spoke very highly of you and like, man, this girl's a baller. I hope that whatever's the next step for her, I hope that it ends with her being in the league. So I remember hearing that. I'm like, okay, let me follow along, see what's going on. And then next thing you know, I think it was the Washington Spirit was the first team that you joined after the injury. Is that correct?
Yep. Spirit was the first team after the injury. My rookie season, I was actually with the Utah Royals, where I got to
Okay.
play with Maddie again, which was great, and a few other Penn Staters were there too. And then experience probably every player's worst nightmare, which is getting injured out of contract, which
Oh,
then required me to rehab off contract in 2021, which was pretty brutal. But then, yeah, lucky enough, had an opportunity to get in with the Washington Spirit in 2022, just to get back into a competitive training environment. Really had no expectations of anything coming from it. I mean, there's always a little hope in the back of my mind that something
for
might come from
sure.
it.
For sure.
But the goal was really just to get back into a competitive training environment. And then I ended up getting a
Parlaying
contract
that.
and being with
Yeah.
the Spirit for 2 years.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to go too far into where we are now. But we have a little insight there, right? We're trying to like tell a story in a short period of time. So there's the background, Marissa. We
Mhm.
got that. Um, let's talk about your time at Penn State. Okay. So their women's program, if the listeners don't know, is a national powerhouse. I feel every year they're competing. They've won a few national championships. So you going there is already a big deal as a high school athlete. What was kind of your mindset when you got that acceptance letter? Did you know you were going to get into Penn State? Was it number one? Was it the school that you had dreams and nightmares about at the same time? Talk to us about that experience getting into a program of that stature.
Yeah, believe it or not, Penn State was not my number one, strictly because it's 3 hours from home and I wanted to go to the West Coast and, experience something different. But it quickly became my number one once I got on campus and met the coaching staff and just kind of saw and heard the vision for what they had
Yeah.
for the team. And then they took the team to a national championship game in 2012 or 2013, right before I got there in 2015.
Mhm.
And it felt right. And there's no other place I would have rather been.
Yeah. So I know I'm from New Jersey. So we've
Oh,
got
cool.
that East Coast connection there. I'm from South Jersey. So I would say that I would relate more to Pennsylvania than New York. But um, we'll keep that between
We'll
us
claim
there.
you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So you were also, while you were there, you were not just part of the women's soccer team, but you were part of track and field, and quite an athlete at that, excelling there. Some might say better on the track and field side than the soccer side, maybe not. But what was it like being a dual sport athlete at, once again, a program that on the women's soccer side required so much and had such high level of expectations? How did you juggle that, a personal life, school life, a sleep life, all of that?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. It was a decision that 15-year-old me made. And then I had to commit to it at that point.
Yeah,
And I guess ignorance is bliss when you're that young and you think like I've done both my whole life and I've excelled at both. Like, why can't I continue to do it? Reality hit me pretty hard my freshman year, just realizing how tough it was going to be. But yeah, I wasn't ready to give up running or soccer. I think honestly, I loved running more going into my freshman year of college,
yeah,
and I thought I was better at running. And then, yeah, the coaching staff and the team with the women's soccer team just made me fall back in love with soccer, and it quickly became. I mean, I took them both very seriously, but I think I knew that if I was going to, continue to do one post grad, it was going to be soccer.
for sure. Well, and is there much of a post grad track and field like pathway other than the Olympics or like world championships and things like that?
Yeah, that's kind of what makes it tough. There isn't one really. I mean, you can get sponsored by Nike or Adidas or Saucony, and train with a group. And I mean, there's definitely meets to compete in. Yeah, it definitely would have been a tougher path
For
than
sure.
not not saying that it's easier to go pro in one or the other, but there's definitely more opportunities, especially in women's soccer right now.
Right. Well, and you brought up a good point right now. I mean, the women's game is growing all around the world, and it has been for a while, but you just got to feel like, excuse me, that here in the US that there's just another like resurgence of not just women's sports, right? You have, I mean, Caitlin Clark on the basketball side, who is, I mean, you can't walk down the street without, someone knowing her. Then you've got here in Kansas City, was it CPKC Stadium, the first woman specific professional soccer stadium. And you've got, I mean, what they're doing there at the KC Current, right? You've got just all of this stuff going on. So it's a good choice. Looks like you've made. But how has that landscape changed from when you were that 15, 16, 17-year-old girl saying, I want to do this versus now you're looking back at it and saying, like, I'm doing it. But did you think that that path here would it be the way that it was, or did you think it'd be easier? Did you think the game would be further along? I threw out a lot at you, so just kind of pick and choose what you want to
Yeah.
answer.
I mean, yeah, no, women's sports in general are booming right now, which it's really cool to be a part of that. But, like we all know that was not the case, back in 2015, maybe when I was
Hmm.
entering college. And when, growing up, I was going to, um, what was it, like WPS games and Boosta games, but there was never a stable league.
Yeah.
And then the first NWSL game or first season was, I think, 2013. And I had teammates at Penn State, my freshman year that ended up going to the league. Mal Weber, who's still playing,
Hmm.
Rocky Rodriguez still playing, Britt Eckerstrom. Um, and I remember going to Western New York to watch Britt and Mal play. And it just, I mean, we were experiencing a more professional environment in college than what
Right. Yep.
some of the best, I mean, the
Yep.
whole U.S. women's national team was playing in this league. And to have seen what they were going through and, to know how much they were getting paid to what it is now, oh my gosh, it's night and day. And it's been cool to see that. But I mean, and the girls that, went through, being treated that way and trying to build the league back from zero, we owe so much to them, putting up with, I'm sure, all of that
Right.
BS.
Oh, for sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
it didn't start to feel like it was a real option, I think, until towards the end of my college career that I was like, okay, this league is stable, it's staying.
Yeah, I can do this, and it can, it looks like it's going to withstand the test of time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like you, where I've seen, I think, four professional women's soccer leagues. Um, I remember the start of the NWSL. FCKC was playing at a local high school.
Mm-hmm.
And just like as you said, seeing to now they're playing in a stadium that's like sold out. I'm if not every game, like damn close to every game.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool to kind of see that. that progress, to know like when they first moved to KC, they were in a baseball stadium and they had mobile locker rooms and all of this stuff. It's just cool to kind of see it and know people in the league and that have kind of grown with it. Um, so I mean, I think that's great to see for sports, and for women's sports specifically. And I think this is only just the start of it. Hopefully, the next person can build a women's specific stadium, and now it's not this unicorn; it's a stadium, right? And it's not this title to it.
Yeah, definitely. Huge credit to the owners that are doing stuff like that and making big strides. I think as players, we've always seen the potential, but it's amazing that now people with the big bucks
Or
are also
backing.
seeing the potential
Yep.
and,
Yep.
investing in it.
Yep. No, you always believe in yourself a little more than like other people believe in you, especially the ones with the money. Um,
Yeah.
so I want to talk to you a little about a different side of the game, which is the mental side of it. And we talked about that hip injury you had out of contract. So what that means for having to do all of that rehab and the surgery on your own. How did that take a toll on you? And just kind of talk about from when it first happened to midway to the end of the recovery to then that first step with Washington.
Okay. Whew. So you're taking me back to 2021, freshly out of contract with, the first NWSL team I've ever played for, my rookie season. And I think the beginning of 2021, I'm planning on jumping in a preseason with a team, potentially going overseas. And I am a player that prides myself in staying healthy, never really being injured. And I just couldn't catch a break. And then and I wasn't really giving myself much of a break because I was stressed about, finding an opportunity to play.
Right.
And bam, I see a couple doctors and I need hip surgery. Um, and that was kind of devastating, just knowing that I was probably out for another good at least 6 months.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, and I think that a lot of other athletes could probably uh, resonate with this. I saw it as an opportunity to kind of reset and, kind of go after another goal. I mean, at that point, I'd committed to getting surgery. I knew rehab was going to be tough, but I always had the end picture in sight. I knew every day I was waking up and I was going to rehab this hip
Yep.
better than anyone's ever rehabbed a joint. And yeah, luckily I surrounded myself with the best doctors and PTs and people that were willing to help me, individual like technical trainers. I can't thank my family enough for, helping me through that and, driving me to appointments and to
Yeah.
PT and all of that. So I think I can't take all the credit myself, but it was a long 6 months of rehab. But really, I had an end goal in sight, and that was it. Yeah.
That was it. And I think that's something to talk about, right? Is you look at adversity and everyone faces it, and it's, what do we go right or do we go left at that fork? And, you said that the whole time it was okay, I know what the end goal is, right? And you were able to kind of remove your blinders a bit and see what that bigger picture was, which, sounds like was a huge motivating factor to you getting to where you are now. Do you think, or was that your initial response? Did you have like, oh man, why did this happen? This sucks. Am I going to be able to play again? Or was it like, okay, my hip is messed up. Let's get to work.
I definitely had maybe a day or two of that. And then I went into an appointment with my orthopedic doctor, and immediately he changed my mindset. He had talked about the number of professional athletes that he had dealt with the same exact injury. And he's like, back on the field in, I forget how many months he said at that time. And he was like, you probably do it faster. And just was very motivating from the
Yeah.
jump. He set me up with a great PT who was constantly kind of pushing the boundaries with me. But yeah, I definitely had a couple days, maybe a couple weeks where um, I was down, but I never questioned my ability to get back on the field because I had seen my rookie season. I learned so much. I
Yeah,
didn't see the field, but
yeah,
I knew that I was capable of playing, and I wanted my opportunity to prove that.
yeah. Well, and I think that's cool that your doctor was, was motivating you. Obviously, they're the ones doing the surgery, but to have that kind of motivation there on top of your family, your friends, your support system, that sounds like you were in a very positive environment during a pretty dark time, huh?
Yeah, and in hindsight, yeah, that was everything. It wasn't intentional really at the time to surround myself with these people. I just, found the doctor and PT that were most highly recommended for my injury. But they ended up being so important.
Yeah, no, that's not awesome to hear, obviously, about the injury, but to know about just that support system that you have and how important that is to keep around you with anything, right? Even when you're at your highest of highs, you want to have those people that are there with you when you're at your lowest of lows, as well. Um,
Definitely.
so yeah, so okay, we're off the injury. We're training with Washington. We're back in the NWSL. What was it like thinking, okay, I'm finally back at this level. Now let me show that I can do it. Was there like getting removing the rust, if you will, off of from where you were the end of your rookie season to then, or what was your mindset going into the trainings and into the preseason and all of that?
I got to miss preseason because I wasn't ready when
Okay.
preseason started.
All right.
Originally, that was my goal, but I wasn't ready. So that took a little bit of pressure away from me because preseason, no matter who you are, it's kind of
Yeah,
stressful.
for sure.
Um, I went in not knowing even what to expect of myself. I hadn't played at this level in a long time, and I really surprised myself. I think having spent that rookie year, getting the crap beaten out of me and
Hmm.
just like constantly trying to keep up, and then taking a year off, getting better technically, and just maturing and getting stronger. It all paid off, and it clicked in those first few weeks of training with Spirit, and I kind of had this moment of like, oh my goodness, I am not just hanging with
Yeah.
them. Like, I'm playing.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm competing.
and it went well. And I really surprised myself. Um, and yeah, I can't even remember how long I was training before I got the call that I was going to be contracted. But that was huge, exciting moment. Really validating after the year of work that
Right.
went into having.
Now compare those two calls from the Utah, right? Utah Royals your first season, and then getting that first contract to then the Washington Spirit. Was it a Were they similar? Were they different? Was Washington, oh, I've already gotten this call once, so now it's just like, okay, I did it. Was it bigger because you're coming off an injury? How can you relate those two moments if possible?
Spirit, the call from Spirit was so much bigger for me. I think it was obviously huge. Your first professional contract. I mean,
For
you're never
sure.
going to forget that. But there was, along with the Spirit contract, came with a sense of like belonging in this league. And I had
Hmm.
proven to myself, even with, post surgery, I could do it. Whereas with Utah, I mean, I'm impressed with how rookies come in now. And I know that is just not how I came into the league back in 2020.
Yeah,
I think I was pretty clueless. You don't even know what you don't know. You just are kind of
right.
the young dumb kid.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, the Spirit contract just it meant a lot.
No, that I can imagine, right? And I mean, like you said, that validation of, okay, I've put in all of this work to get back to here, and now I'm back here. So I'm home. I'm where I belong. Um, you've done that work. I think, and in my opinion, maybe you might not agree. I think others might, but have become kind of like an NWSL favorite. I feel like on Instagram, anytime there's a Portland Thorns game day picture, you're listed there. Anytime there's promo for a game schedule, I see your face up there. So, what does that feel like? And not so much saying like being the face of the NWSL. I'm not saying that, but what does it feel like having that moment or like, hey, I'm a pro. Like my mom is now looking and seeing me on TV and saying, hey, that's my baby who still doesn't clean her room when she comes home.
Oh, that's funny. She'll love that one. Yeah, I mean, I definitely wouldn't consider myself that. But it is like a little bit of a reality check, just how normal I think that that feels to me
Hmm.
now, and it feels
Hmm.
to I'm assuming all the girls in the league now. And it's nice to kind of check yourself and be like, this is what you were hoping for, and this is
Right.
what you were working for. And you have it now, and you still have bad days, and you're still trying to achieve more. Um, yeah, it is a nice reminder to, be grateful for, I mean, everything you've gotten at this point.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think with that, I'll tell you what was a really cool moment. So I knew, and for the listeners, you're a member of the Irish national team. So I'm watching the World Cup and the first game, right? You're on the squad, you're playing against the US. Um, Here I am just remembering you like trying to get in back into the NWSL. You're on the field during a World Cup, the opening match, right? Yeah, I know before you were going into some camps, playing some friendlies, but what was that moment like? All right, just walk with me here. That moment when you first walked onto the pitch and they're playing the national anthems, you're standing against teammates and people that you've known and played against for a while. And then what was the moment when that whistle blows, you're finally on the pitch, the game is going, was it what you thought it would be? Is it just a normal game at that point? Kind of help me and the rest of the podcast listeners know what those moments are like.
Yeah, I mean, walking onto the field before that first game of the World Cup is a moment that I will never forget. And in that moment, I actually thought to myself, I'm never going to forget this moment. It was just kind of one of those impactful ones
Yeah,
where I think there were like 80,000 people in the stands, and I had never played in front of that many
yeah,
people
that's
before.
crazy.
I hope I have the opportunity to do it again, and just women's soccer keeps growing at that rate. But um, yeah, and just having my family behind the bench and it being against Australia in Australia, I mean, it was a huge game.
Yeah,
And not just that opening match, but singing the national anthem, the Irish national anthem in Australia, where there are a lot of, Irish expats.
okay,
Um, and was they were some of the most special moments for me at that
yeah.
World Cup. I mean, Irish people are proud people, and we do
Mm-hmm.
not stand solemnly during that national anthem.
Mm-hmm.
We felt it. And I mean, I have goosebumps now thinking about it, but those were some of my favorite moments of the entire World Cup, is just, standing amongst my teammates and, just being so proud to be there and proud to be like hanging with the top teams in the world.
Yeah. Well, and talk to me. So you're there at the World Cup. Obviously, the most important thing is the game, right? And what's going on there. But if you could tell us your favorite moment or memory from the entire World Cup camp experience, from wheels up to getting back home at the end of it.
Oh boy. Oof. That is tough. I mean, the girls on Ireland are, some of the funniest people I know. And I mean, any single dinner can turn into, the best dinner you've ever had or the funniest conversations you've ever had. Best moment outside of playing, I don't know that I can pick one. I
Okay.
mean, the night after the group stage ended and we weren't moving on, I mean, the team got together, and then I'm sure all the teams, as soon as they lost, did the same thing and just kind of celebrated the year that we had,
Hmm.
and, qualifying, and I think kind of stamping our like how deserving we are to be at the World Cup and play at this level.
Yeah.
Celebrating that was really special.
Okay, I can dig it. And I know that's a tough question to kind of put you on the spot with. And I try to tell this story as a coach to parents and to players, and I'm sure you can attest to it. But when the game ends for us, and it ends for everyone, you very rarely remember the scores or the games. It's the
Mm.
memory, it's the hotel trip, it's being locked out of your room at 2 a.m. and coaches doing a room check. It's forgetting your boots, at your dorm room and you're halfway on an away trip somewhere, right? Those
Mhm.
are the things that I feel like make the game worth it is, those memories that you take away from it.
Oh yeah, I think that that is something, especially after my rookie year, just realizing how impactful certain players were in different ways to me, as a player, as a rookie. I have really tried to take that into the rest of my career. Just, your teammates have more impact on you than coaching decisions or,
Hmm.
a golasso you score in the 90th minute. It's just so I do try to be that teammate, be welcoming to the rookies, be encouraging of the rookies, and also like when I'm in camps and stuff like that, be around the girls as much as I can because those are the best moments of camp and the best moments probably of our careers happening. So
Yeah.
trying to be present in those is important.
For sure. Well, and we've talked about, what your responsibility is for club. You're representing country as well. We kind of talked about this in college, right? Where you've got all these things that you're juggling around. How do you manage to take time for yourself, or how do you manage to not kind of go crazy thinking of all this other stuff and be in the moment, be present, take time for, with family, with loved ones, whatever that is.
Yeah, I the past couple years have been, my first few years being an international, not even full time, but as much it's the most I've ever done it.
Right.
And it made me respect the girls that have been, on national teams for 10 years and just
Hmm.
the work they've put in, like they miss everything. They miss weeks off in the NWSL season. I mean, we all miss weddings and
Hmm.
everything, family. I'll be missing Thanksgiving in a couple weeks here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you do have to carve out time for yourself just to kind of decompress after these long seasons and these long stretches of time where you just don't get a break. But at the same time, this year especially, I've had to give myself so much grace. Like I have just got off of a 15-hour flight and I'm jet lagged, but I am going to, bring good energy. I'm going to enjoy training
Yep.
and just kind of do what I can without putting too much more stress into my life.
Yes. No, I get that. And I feel like that's important. And everyone kind of copes and deals with that maybe anxiety of being pulled in so many different directions or never feeling like you have the time to do everything or to please everyone, to see everyone. So it's always interesting just to hear how other individuals deal with it. Because I think especially in the professional realm, as you've mentioned, you miss so much in a 10-month season, right? As is. And then you throw in international on top of that. Now, as you said, you're everything is on the road. Everything is, game here, game there, training here, camp there. Um, so yeah, it's good to see that you're dealing with it with such grace. At least from the outside, that's how it looks.
I'm trying. Yeah. I mean, it's not always that pleasant, I would say. Like there definitely are days where I am super stressed and dreading training or, nervous about the next call up or the game day roster, that kind of stuff. But I've had a lot of good teammates in the past. And one teammate that's been so influential this year, Megan Klingenberg, just reminding me to be present.
Yeah.
And I mean, everyone says it, but control what you can control. I'm not making game day decisions. I'm not making roster decisions.
Mhm.
and just be present and try to enjoy training because we all love to play.
Yep.
But yeah, so I mean, she's been huge and just trying to remain present and mindful
And
every day
that's all.
helps.
It's a kid's game, right? That we just, play as adults, and I think we've got to try to remember that. Um, Also, let Megan know I'm a huge fan of hers. I remember her during her national team days. Such a fan of hers. So pass that word on if you could.
Oh, I will. Yeah.
Thank you. So all right, so we're getting ready to wrap up here, but just want to do a few more questions. Not so much rapid fire, but let's just kind of see how quickly we can get through some of these, okay? So,
Okay.
first pro moment, when was it? What was it?
With the Spirit in 2022 at Gotham, which was really special because it's the closest market to home for my family. So immediate family was there. Some of my best friends live in New York City. Um, club teammates that I've played with since I was 12, sitting with my parents, super emotional. First minutes in the NWSL, but the best time for it to happen and really special.
I love it. All right, you're off training, you're home for the day. What is your guilty pleasure snack that you're sneaking and not telling anyone else about other than the people on this podcast?
Ooh, I love ice cream sandwiches. Trader
Okay.
Joe's makes amazing ice cream sandwiches.
Okay. All right. So ice cream sandwiches, Trader Joe's. On your off day, what is it that you like to target to do?
Mm. That's usually my day to run errands. So a Target run. I usually get some coffee around my apartment, read a book, watch Netflix.
Okay. During your away trips, are you the teammate that people want to stay with, or are you the one that people want to stay away from?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe my teammates will come out of the woodwork when I say here that I would hope they would want to be around me. I don't know.
You're the one. You're the one people want. They say, I want to stay with Marissa. I want to stay with Marissa.
I think I'm an easy roommate, and I don't think anyone
Okay.
can dispute that. I think that I'm pretty easygoing. Um, but who knows? Maybe people will disagree with that.
I guess only time will tell.
Yeah.
All right. And final question. If you could go back in time and tell younger you anything, any advice, anything in the world, maybe come up with, invest in the housing market way back then, right? What advice would you tell yourself to maybe alter or, change where things are now?
Ooh, watch more soccer.
That's a
I
great one.
hated watching soccer
Oh
until I
man.
learned how to, dissect it tactically and all of that. I just couldn't. I would watch big games, important games, but
Right. You're
even
not
watching
watching the
most
day to
more.
day.
Yeah. I tell that to kids I train in the off season. I'm like, just watch soccer.
Yep. It's so
Yeah.
simple and so many players still, don't do it. So okay, watch more soccer. If there's any advice that you would give someone that is listening to this podcast, a 14, 15, 16-year-old girl that's like, I want to be you, maybe minus the hip injury, right? Beforehand, but I
Yeah.
want to be you. I want to be in the NWSL. I want to represent my country. What advice are you telling them then or at that age?
Ooh. Mm. I think that the club environment in training and in games is where you're supposed to figure out what kind of player you are. And, I think try things, don't be afraid to mess up. And also make sure you're at a club where the coaches believe in you and support you, because that will get you far in and of itself.
Yeah, that's huge. And I try to tell that to parents. I'm glad you said it. People get so caught up on playing at this club, this club, that club, that club. But the most important thing is the coach. And if you're on a team where the coach who believes in you and knows what they're doing, it's a good group, that's going to take you further than, riding the bench of ECNL or GA or insert any other four letters that makes up a league, anyone
Mm-hmm.
there. So that's good.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we're getting here to the end. Marissa, I think I've kind of touched on everything that I've wanted to. Is there anything that you'd like to leave us with, the podcast listeners, myself? A note to yourself for 10 years, you can come back and listen to this
Oh,
episode. Mom, I love you, whatever that is.
huge shout out to my family. I would not be here without them. They've been my biggest supporters through all of this club changes, injuries, everything. So shout out them.
I love it. Well, everyone, No Stress Midwest podcast listeners, I want to thank you. Marissa, I want to thank you for being a guest. We've been trying to get this set for quite some time. Good things come to those who wait. We waited. Here it is. So I want to thank you so much for your time, taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to us. And for those listeners, check back on next week's episode, and we will chat with you all soon.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Cheers.